Hi, I'm so excited. Just being here today makes me realize one of the many reasons why I'm so proud to be a student here at the University of Ottawa. It's incredible to see all the talent and the leadership. What I wanted to talk to you guys today a little bit about is a journey that I've experienced that has taught me so much, and I feel very fortunate. When I was 12 years old, my life changed. You know, those life-changing moments. I was always a person who had something called obsessive-compulsive disorder. Now, OCD is an anxiety disorder that's made up of two components, obsessions and compulsions. Obsessions are the fears, thoughts, and phobias that people with OCD struggle with, things that plague them day in, day out. We're very busy worrying about them. Compulsions are the actions that people with OCD do to help them get rid of their anxiety. So a really classic obsession-compulsion combo, I like to call it combo number one, is the obsession of feeling like you're contaminated or that you're going to contaminate someone else, and the compulsion is, what do you guys think? Hand washing, right. So, thank you. So, the problem with someone with OCD is that they're doing these things to help rid themselves of anxiety. But in a person's brain who has OCD, a part of it is broken. And that part is like the gear shift. Now, you can ask my dad. I'm not very good at driving standard yet. But I do know that if the gear shift got stuck, I'd probably be even worse. And that's a terrifying thought. Someone with OCD starts performing a ritual with the hope that their anxiety will go down. So when I wash my hands, it goes something like this. I start washing, and I feel good. I feel like I'm getting cleaner. And then my OCD chimes in and it goes, hey, did you wash behind your ring? So I take off my ring and I'm like, I'll just do it one more time. And I wash again. And I still don't feel right. So I'm like, you know what, I'll just wash under my nails this time and I'll be good to go. So I do it another time. And as you can see, it keeps going and going. It doesn't end. And that's why OCD can be such a debilitating illness. Until I was 12, my OCD was quite manageable. On the morning of December 22nd, 2002, I woke up with a fever of 104 degrees. I was very warm. I was in bed for about 4 days and I was very sick. When I got out of bed, everything changed. The first thing I remember was getting out of bed and wanting to brush my teeth, because dental hygiene is very important, and I hadn't brushed my teeth in a while. And so I got out of bed and I started brushing my teeth, and I remember being unable to move from brushing my back molar. I don't know how else to say it, but I couldn't stop. I was brushing one tooth, and one tooth only, and I have more than one tooth, I'll have you know. So I was completely stuck, and for the first time in my life, I experienced being stuck, a feeling that I've started to get very used to. And that's a term we use in my house, but as I went through treatment for my OCD, I learned that a lot of OCD sufferers use this term. In fact, in my house, anybody who's close with us has probably often heard my parents say, Alyse, are you stuck, or do you need help getting unstuck? Even things like, I remember I once had a friend over and my dad yelled downstairs, Cara, that's my sister, can you get your sister unstuck from the pantry? Just little things that you may never hear in other houses, but that was our reality. So after I got hit with this illness, I went back to school because we weren't sure what we were dealing with yet. And the first thing that happened, I was in grade 7, I went back after Christmas break and my OCD got a brilliant idea. There were tiles on the floor and they were about this big. And my OCD told me that if I stepped on the cracks in the tiles, something very terrible would happen to my family. So this was a problem because I had to navigate my classes. So what started happening is I started missing class because I would spend my whole day almost getting to class, then stepping on a crack and having to walk back to my locker and start the journey again. So my classmates were confused. I was so different. I was having a lot of different issues. I was asking questions over and over and over again. OCD is a doubting disease, so I was always wanting to make sure of things. Was I rude? Was I mean? Had I hurt anyone? Had I offended anyone? And one thing I've learned, a very wise and important lesson, is once you ask someone something 100 times, they're bound to get a tiny bit annoyed. So my parents, who are incredible, had this great idea, and they were like, listen, we're going to go in, we're going to talk to your class. We're going to tell them that you're not doing this on purpose, that you are acting strangely, but it's something that you can't control, and we haven't worked it out yet. We haven't figured it out yet, but we would appreciate if they were patient with you. And I said, okay. So my parents went in and talked to my class, and I wasn't there for the talk. But all I know is that the next day I got to school, and a boy in my class who I'd grown up with came up to me, and he said, Alyse, listen, I've talked to the other guys, talked to my homies, and we've decided that we are going to make a schedule, and we're going to take turns piggybacking you to class, so that your feet don't touch the ground. It's so funny because I'm very blessed and I get to travel around the country speaking to high school students, and usually when I tell that story, I always wait because all the girls are like, aww, And I'm like, girls, you listen to me. If you don't take anything else out of this talk, you never settle for anything less than a guy who will piggyback you. That's what I tell them. So that was incredible for me. That was a life-changing moment. I realized at that moment that being open inspires creativity. Sharing my story allowed people around me to react. I like to think that most people want to help and want to make a change. The problem is, no one's a mind reader. I had someone at a talk last week say, but the Long Island Medium can read minds. And I was like, okay, you're uninvited to all my future talks. People can't read minds, so they need to know what's going on with you so they can know how to help. And through my journey with OCD, although the piggyback rides were fun, I still remained very, very sick and started my many hospitalizations in Canada and the US as we tried to deal with this illness that took over my entire life. I was unable to shower by myself, get dressed. Even just walking across a room at many points in my illness could take hours because I would get so stuck. So through that one day in my parents talking to my grade 7 class, I learned the power of being open. And it's because of that I felt that sharing my story is so incredibly worthwhile. As I continued through my journey with school, over the years, my OCD remained quite severe. And every year, I sort of did the same thing. I would tell my teachers and let my new classmates know about what was going on with me. Now, actually, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, when I was much younger, I was wanting to get into the University of Ottawa, but because of my illness, I had never finished high school dropout. So I went to adult high school to take some credits so that I could get into the health sciences program, and I met an incredible teacher there. He'd been teaching 35 years, and like I always do, I let him know about my struggles. Now, he was my calculus teacher, and one of the problems I face with my OCD, and I've never quite figured it out, is that I am terrified of the number 7. And I have had residents fascinated by this and try to analyze and figure it out. I had one resident who was very nervous who was like, well, have you ever considered the joke 789? Is that what bothered you? It's like, oh, that's such a good try, but I don't think so. Good effort. So I told Bernie this, and I said, listen, calculus is going to be hard for me because it just so happens that in math, the number 7 seems to come up all the friggin' time. So he was like, okay. He's like, challenge accepted. I'm like, no, it's not challenge, I'm just telling you. He's like, no. He's like, you will not encounter the number 7 in my class. I'm like, Bernie, that's impossible. He's like, oh yeah? So the next week we had our first calculus test. And we were sitting in class, and we were just about to start, and a boy raised his hand. And he was like, Bernie, it's like all the numbering is wrong on here. He's like, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 26, 28. I can't handle this. And Bernie's like, listen, you be quiet, you focus on your test. Alyse. Confidentiality was not his forte. And that is something I think I'll always remember. The fact that yet again, being open inspired creativity. I mean, who would have thought of that? Now, dialing phone numbers has often been a challenge for me because Bell Canada still hasn't listened to my request to remove the number 7. But here was Bernie, one person who decided that he was going to do what he could to make my life easier. And I really like to think that we all have that ability. We all have that ability to be creative and figure out how we can make each of us productive and happy citizens. Because everyone has challenges. From the time I got sick, my mom reminded me that everybody has something. And mine just happened to be something that you couldn't see and that made me get stuck in pantries sometimes. I always thought, though, a pantry is the best place to get stuck because I'd never go hungry. So I was lucky. So I, over the years, have continued to sort of preach the idea that being open inspires not only creativity but also acceptance. So it is through my journey that I've learned that it's often our daily challenges that inspire the most creativity. So thank you so much for listening.